Max Colville here, and this is the It's the Pictures podcast. This is episode number 183, and I'm joined with my co-host, Evan Crean. Hi, Evan.
Hey Max, how's it going?
Pretty good. I managed to make it through that intro. It was a little different than normal, but we got there all the same.
Were you saying you made it through because you're just happy your computer didn't die on you?
Yes, yes. So, before we started recording, I was like getting downstairs. I was all ready for setting up the podcast episode. And lo and behold, my MacBook wouldn't even like show like it was a sad battery sign. It was just like completely shot. And I was like, oh God, what happened here? And I realized quickly that it had gotten unplugged during some cleaning I was doing recently. And we were delayed quite a bit. I think a little bit more than a half an hour of getting this thing going. But we're here.
Yep.
We did it.
Made it so far.
Yeah, so this is a really big season for us as movie critics. The screeners are coming in fast and furious, Evan.
Yep.
I think I'm keeping tally of some of the ones that are coming to the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I think we're just about over 100 movies that are been given to us for awards consideration. And
I didn't realize it was that many already. Damn.
Yeah, it's a pretty lofty number. I know from years past that like we're recording this episode like a few days before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. But
Yeah.
This is normally the time that like the bum rush for screeners really comes, and like the few days before Thanksgiving, because they're like, oh, everybody's gonna have like Friday off, and they're gonna have like time to watch our movie. Like maybe they'll pick one of the 100 to catch up with.
Yeah. There's always a lot to get through in the period from like Thanksgiving through the time we vote, which is usually like second week in December. It used to be like the first week in December, and that was just nuts. I think people were appreciative that we moved our voting date back just a little bit.
Right, and it's funny because you'll hear it from other groups, and I know this is a little inside baseball, but they'll be like trying to be first, and you'll probably see selections made the week right after Thanksgiving, regardless, and like there'll be critics who have seen everything already, including the late December movies like A Complete Unknown, which is the Timothy Chalamet Bob Dylan movie that has finally screened for critics, or Nosferatu or Baby Girl, some movies that are promised to come out on Christmas Day. They'll have caught up with all those and made their decision, and it's just a lot, Evan.
It is. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we've realized in Bafka we don't need to be the first to get out there. It's more important that we have a little bit more time to watch the movies and feel like we're feeling better about the movies that we're selecting, and not just having the issue where, oh, we just saw this the most recently, or these were the things that we were able to get to quickly because there were enough screenings or what have you, and so that's how it ends up being voted in.
Right, and I mean, there's always this issue of like wanting to highlight movies that maybe are not on the beaten path, or roles that definitely deserve more attention than what the early awards drama would tell you if you're plugged into that. So keep a lookout for all movies over the next month or so, and hopefully when Evan and I share our top tens eventually, whether it be in December, or if we decide to push it to January, how we used to do it on It's the Pictures, that you'll find some movies that you weren't as familiar with.
Yeah, it's so much fun coming up with the top 10. It's hard. It's very hard every year. I find myself often with like a top 20 or 25 that try to whittle that down to a top 10. But it is a lot of fun coming up with the list and thinking back on all the movies you've seen over the year and trying to like sum it up in what you think are the 10 best, or 10 more appropriately that you liked the best.
Right, because yeah, there's no way to say that you've seen all the movies, and it's the ones that you've seen the 10 best of those. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but speaking about awards, we learned some new information the other day that maybe this year's Oscars will be more fun. They There was a press release given out that the Academy has tapped comedian Conan O'Brien as the Oscars host for next year, and uh, I don't know. I think that's fun. I remember these years, Evan, where they were like, "Oh, we're not even gonna do a host. We're just gonna like fly off the handle and like and try to figure it out as they go." And I never really enjoyed that. Even though like what you can argue, what does a host do outside of like the intro and like some bits here or there? Um, I still like the kind of cohesiveness or structure that having a host gives a show.
See, I'm a weirdo. I liked the years when they didn't have a host. I dug that. Because you're right. There are certain things that the host is doing: transitions, intro, kind of a wrap up, conclusion of the show, and they can bring a lot of personality to it, or they can bring a little personality to it. But I think Conan O'Brien is a good choice. I don't think I've seen him host an award show before, but I've definitely enjoyed him as a late night host and comedian, and I think he has a great sense of humor. So I imagine that it will be a pretty fun ceremony. I think he'll probably inject some of his kind of goofy, sometimes self-deprecating humor that I think it'll bring a good energy to the Oscars.
Right, and I mean, as we see, being an award show host is a frankly like not glamorous job. It's a
Yeah.
it's a job that has a lot of scrutiny on it, and it's not really like you'll get kudos for doing a good job, as opposed to you'll get like I don't know destroyed in the newspaper and the media and what have you if you do a bad job.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's not really articles being written about, oh, so and so was a great Oscars host. There's usually, oh, they tanked, or this sketch failed, or this was a dumb idea. I hate that they did this year. It's very thankless, like you said.
But Evan, this weekend that we're at the end of now has had promised to be Barbenheimer Part Two. It's gotten its own name, Glicked, if you will,
Glicked?
and
Glicked?
yeah, Glicked maybe, um, which is the combination of Wicked Part One and Gladiator Two.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not they were going to live up to the expectations of Barbie and Oppenheimer. And well, they weren't quite those two movies. They certainly did well at the box office.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a successful weekend for both. I mean, Wicked much more so than Gladiator 2, but Gladiator 2 I don't think has been doing so bad this weekend. I think it was a pretty solid opening weekend, right?
Yeah, so I have some of the numbers in front of me, and like, uh, it says that Wicked will probably hit around 115 million, whereas Gladiator 2 will open at 55 million, which happens to be the best movie to open in second place since Oppenheimer did so last July.
Mm-hmm.
So it is definitely a high-powered weekend. Uh, you even had something like the Dwayne Johnson starring Red One that we we really didn't cover here on the show, but that one did a 12 million this weekend. So they're holding up, but more so, Evan. I think that does Wicked prove that people still like musicals, or is it just because this is the musical to adapt and if any musical was going to be a success, it was going to be this one.
I mean, I think it's a little column A, a little column B. I mean, people love musicals. The people who love them really love them and are going to come out of the woodwork when these film adaptations come out. So But I also think that this particular musical has such popularity that, of course, it's going to be a smash hit at the box office. Like, Variety was saying this is the biggest opening for a film based on a Broadway adaptation since Les Mis. It's big, even bigger than Les Mis, and we all know that Les Mis is such a revered musical. And so I think that's definitely telling that.
Yeah, I think I have this article here from the numbers in front of me, and they said uh, that the previous opening weekend record was held by Into the Woods, and that
At
was
30
about,
million.
yeah. So that's much different now to see what's going on here. But I like you said, I guess maybe it's a little bit of both. Wicked did get good critic reviews. It's generally seen as family friendly. I think it has a pretty uh, thing like a rating that's skewed so that families will go out and see it.
Right. And it doesn't have weird stuff like cats, people in weird makeup or weird songs or odd wardrobe choices, special effects. It's a little more tame, like you said, a little more family friendly.
I guess like the challenge would be, Evan, is if they ever, which is there a definite possibility that they will likely adapt Hamilton into a movie, right? We
Yeah.
have the live action recording, of course, with the main cast and everything, but I tend to think like maybe that would be the biggest challenger of a box office smash.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Hamilton would definitely give this a run for its money. I think it's interesting that this is part one of two, that they broke up the musical into two parts. I think it will be interesting to see because I think the next installment is supposed to drop next year, next Thanksgiving.
Right.
It will be interesting to see if the momentum holds and it's another really big hit, or if people are kind of not interested in tuning into the second installment, or much less interested.
Right, because I mean, this doesn't spoil too much, but the first act of the musical and such, the first movie both end with the musical defining number defying gravity, right? That's the one. Even if you don't know the musical, you probably have heard that song before,
Yeah.
and maybe people will have gotten a taste of the movie, and they're just like, yeah, this is the one that I need to see, and how many will want or need to come and see the other half of it? I don't know. I guess the argument could be made that, like, say something like Dune Part Two came out a few years later, and it very much is a part of the same project, and audiences came out for that. I don't know. I don't know necessarily if it brought audiences that hadn't seen Part One, and that's the strangest thing about these Part Two ideas is like, are you getting people who didn't see Part One and they're just like checking it out, or are they catching up with it like on VOD or something before seeing Part Two? I don't know, but um, I guess I'd have to look at the numbers to see if something like, well, that's gonna be skewed, right? Dune Part Two, because I think Dune One was open during the pandemic, so that won't be a good example.
Right.
Um, but to find something that feels very much like this, um, and then Gladiator Two, I guess it did fine. I mean, like I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think Gladiator One was a world beater. I think it was like, I mean, obviously it was 25 years, almost 25 years ago now. So maybe I wasn't watching the box office then, but if I remember correctly, it was just like it did fine summer movie, and then like it ended up winning Best Picture, and more people paid attention to
Yeah. From what I heard, I don't think we're in danger of this one winning Best Picture.
it.
But, it probably will have some staying power at the box office. I imagine both of these movies will be sticking around for a few weeks at least. It doesn't seem like either is going to immediately get tossed from theaters.
Right, and I mean, from what we're hearing, at least from pundits who are looking at awards potentials, they're looking at like Denzel Washington kind of stealing the show in Gladiator 2, and the two women in Wicked kind of doing the show stopping numbers as expected.
Right. Yeah. Cynthia Erivo and
Ariana
Ariana
Grande.
Grande.
Um, but then Evan, to transition, I guess this is going to be another musical. Lo and behold, but Jesse Eisenberg, whose movie A Real Pain is in select theaters now, and it's his second film, and I was a fan. I wasn't wild about it, but there's certainly people who might feel stronger about it, and certainly of Kieran Culkin's performance. It's a much better movie than his first movie, but he, I guess, has announced plans that for his third movie that he's going to do a musical comedy, and it's going to star Julianne Moore and Paul Giamatti. And
Interesting pairing.
yeah, I mean, I have like a soft spot for Paul Giamatti. I mean, I guess it started with Sideways. Like I loved him in that, and certainly I loved him in Holdovers last year. He was my pick for best actor last year, and
Yeah.
so I'm excited to see what this project brings in. And it's funny, Evan. There's another musical coming out, I guess, in like a few weeks that called like The End, which A24 is releasing, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the trailer for that, and that looks weird, and I guess I'm looking forward to that. And I watched Amelia Perez, which is like one of the big uh, potential Oscar players this year, and that was also a musical. So yeah, I guess musicals aren't dead.
No,
But
does not seem like it.
uh, we'll see what this has coming up.
Yeah.
Um, do you it's just, what's your thoughts on this? It's just like an interesting pairing, and
I think so. Julianne Moore and Paul Giamatti. I like Jesse Eisenberg as an actor. I don't think I've seen either of his I haven't seen either of his two directorial efforts yet, but I am definitely interested to see A Real Pain. Musical is not something I would expect from him. So I guess we'll see what happens. I did read in the link that you sent me that apparently he's going to contribute some music to this.
hmm.
So that also is kind of interesting to me. I don't really know who Jesse Eisenberg is in the musical realm, so I guess we'll have to see how that all turns out. I'm very curious, to say the least.
All right. I guess moving on to our feature this week, Evan and I decided, in the spirit of capitalism,
Yes.
to talk about some of our things that we thought were good gifts for the holiday season. Over at the It's the Picture Substack, I make an annual list, and by the time you hear this episode, that will be live for everyone, and you can check it out. And note that on either the podcast here or the newsletter, Evan and I make nothing as affiliate links or anything like
Right.
that.
No
We are,
no endorsements
yes,
or anything there.
this is all stuff that we've decided to include on our lists.
Yep.
So, Evan, when you normally pick out gift lists or like things that you want for the holidays, do you often think about movie themed stuff, or is it just like kind of there in the ether?
When I think about things I want for myself, movies are definitely part of the mix, especially now in the realm where it's important to own physical media because it's not easy to find certain things, and especially when Criterion is constantly putting out these really cool releases, and others as well, like Vinegar Syndrome and some of the other folks who are putting out physical media still. But I think it really sometimes it comes down to themes. Sometimes in a given year, there's just something I'm thinking more about, whether it be the Dragon Ball Z or something that just keeps coming up, and then there ends up being kind of like themes, and that also happens as a gift buyer when I'm buying things for my loved ones. They're just usually there'll be some type of theme that emerges. Like this past year for my wife's birthday, it was all Zelda themed things. So it just kind of happened that way. What about you?
Yeah, for me, yeah, I continue to look at movie things. I mean, I buy a lot of stuff throughout the year. I guess I'm bad like that. I guess when it comes to movies, um, I tend to buy stuff from Criterion during their big sales. Um, Likely, if you're hearing this podcast, the Barnes and Noble 50% off sale is probably still going on until the end of November. I know two discs that I have ordered. Um, Criterion's edition of The Shape of Water and um, Paper Moon. Those are coming
Ooh,
in for
Paper
me too.
Moon.
Yeah, love that movie.
Yeah, saw
Um,
that a couple years ago for the first time and really loved it.
but yeah, outside of those, like yeah, I'm pretty bad at buying myself movies. I tend to like put like extras that maybe that I haven't bought or think that I might add to the collection. Um, Certainly, some movies that I included on um, my shopping list are stuff that I've kind of already picked up throughout the year that I loved, whether it be uh, the dual pack of Jackie Chan films, Project A and Project A2 from 88 Films, or something like The Abyss, which was now out on Blu-ray and 4K for the first time from James Cameron, and he also did True Lies and Aliens earlier this
Yep.
year.
Those are all great releases that I'm excited about. True Lies, especially because I owned that in the DVD days and have been hoping at some point it would come out with like an HD version.
But yeah, I hope that some of the stuff that I've come to put on this list, and Evan certainly helped with it, spikes your fancy. One of the first things that I knew that I wanted to include, and something I was looking forward to Warner Brothers releasing when it was first come out, was the two-part Dune box set, which combines both Dune Part One and Dune Part Two into one set, which is kind of how I feel like it should have been all along. I mean, like
Yeah,
I know that maybe if you bought it as it was going along, maybe you didn't wait and you have the two different parts, but it definitely feels like Dune was always these two movies together, and this is a great way to have it in your collection.
that totally makes sense. I could see myself being patient enough to wait to want to get it as a single set rather than just buying it individually.
Yeah, and Dune Part Two, it was one of my favorite movies of this year thus far. While Part One kind of felt like it recycled a lot of what David Lynch had already done in the '80s, Part Two was really expanded upon, and Lynch really didn't get a chance to delve that deep into it. And they did a lot of really ingenious things with Zendaya's character, where Chani was built out a lot more in this movie than she is in the book. So I'm a big fan, and also I've loved Denis Villeneuve's films. So if you want to see like I'd say like hard science fiction movie, it's amazing like something like this exists with like this kind of star power and this kind of like budget, but it does. And if this is your bag, then I absolutely recommend you pick it up. One of the next things that I'm actually being sent this from Warner Brothers, Evan. I guess it's
Ooh,
gonna come in tomorrow. Is 10th anniversary package of Interstellar, and
nice.
while the disc itself of the movie hasn't changed that much since its initial 4K debut a few years ago, I think it has some new featurettes and anniversary content on the disc, as well as like some nicer packaging that I'm eager to check out and review for the website. And I know that film fans who love Interstellar should know that it's also going to be showing again in IMAX in a limited fashion within, I think, within the next 3 weeks or so. So if you're a big fan of Interstellar like I am, and I know when John was on the show that he really loved Interstellar as well. We felt like it was one of those movies that you could just put on and just sink into it. I guess like you could argue that some of the concepts are heavy in it, but like you could kind of let that wash over you because I think like the movie itself is just so rewarding and entertaining. Do you have any thoughts on Interstellar, Evan?
I don't think I've seen it since it came out. I don't remember being a huge fan of it at the time. I think I like Christopher Nolan generally, but I didn't respond well to him trying to write an emotional movie because he's kind of not an emotional person.
Yeah, some
But
could do that.
definitely had some good moments in it. Particularly Matt Damon's entire section of the movie, I thought was just great. I really enjoyed when he showed up, and then I felt like it got a little bit too 2001 for
Mhm.
me at a certain point. But it's cool that they're doing some 10th anniversary. They're doing a re-release of it so people can go check it out in IMAX. I dig that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to be too surprised that the disc is going to be the same when it comes to home video, but there's certainly enough Christopher Nolan fans out there that if they don't own it or if they think that would make a good gift for somebody, it would be a fine package to give someone as a 10th anniversary celebration.
Yeah, definitely. Be a good gift to a Christopher Nolan fan.
So, Evan, let's switch this up so I'm not just talking all the time. Can you share some of the book recommendations that we have for our Christmas list?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Let's see. So one of the ones on the list is a book that's come out from A24, right? It's Hey kids, watch this. And it's really interesting idea. It's a book that has recommendations for movies to watch with your kids. And what I like about it is that it's over 100 suggestions for movie nights, and I like that it's broken up by different age groups. So preschool, little kids, big kids, tweens, and it looks like it's very colorful, full of great pictures and articles and commentary on the different movies and why they're part of the recommendations. And I just think it's a cool idea for a book. And as someone who's a parent, young child, we're not really watching movies just yet. I like the idea of having something like this to kind of have some more movie recommendations on top of the ones that we watched when we were kids. Max,
Hmm.
I like the idea of maybe showing my kids some different stuff that I didn't see or wasn't familiar with. So, kind of a great idea for all of us to get a little more cinematic education, but age appropriate.
Right, and you know what kills me is like so often when I want to put a movie on for my daughter, it's like, what Disney movie can we put on? And I don't want to just like stick to like depending on Disney movies and for the entertainment. I mean, like certainly there's good ones and there's bad ones, but when your whole diet is Disney, you might want for something else.
Totally. And I think when we were kids, they were putting out some weird freaking kids movies, right? They were putting out stuff like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and Neverending Story that has some really dark stuff in it.
We just watched Neverending Story the other night, the three of us.
Oh boy, how did that go?
It went well. I just we definitely talked through the horse part because it
Right,
was just like I wasn't just gonna let her sit there and see the horse.
right. Yeah, but there was lots of weird dark stuff that we were watching when we were kids that were not just cartoons and the strict kind of Disney diet like you're mentioning. So I suspect that this book offers those kinds of recommendations as well. And I believe it also has some things of like how you can talk about some of the difficult themes in there. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that is part of the kind of overall package of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. So if you go on Letterboxd, there's some great users on there who have made lists of the titles that appear in the book. So if you want to know what you're getting into, or what might be in there, and that there's a fantastic selection of movies, stuff that I might not have thought of myself. And again, whenever I'm on the shelf looking for something, it's nice to know that there's movies out there that I haven't thought of.
Yeah, for sure. So that's one of the books on our list. We also have Nora Ephron at the Movies, which is of course about filmmaker Nora Ephron. It's subtitled "A Visual Celebration of the Writer and Director Behind When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, and More." And it looks like a very visual kind of book. Lots of really great photos from the films. I imagine there's probably some plot summary, some essays and things, and this is the kind of book a nerd, film nerd like me would enjoy too. I like those kinds of books that are about movies and people who love them talking about them and digging into the details and talking about the behind the scenes stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm
let's.
I'm I'm a big fan of Nora Ephron's movies myself. I don't think like they're solely for women, or this idea that like, oh, they're romantic comedies that only women would enjoy. Like some of the ones that are listed in the summary of the book, right? Of course, are movies like You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle. And then, of course, When Harry Met Sally. And I love all three of those movies in different ways, certainly. I mean, Nora Ephron was such a fantastic writer. And why
Mm,
this book definitely feels like looks. I haven't seen the book in person. It's maybe feels like it's more of like a coffee table kind of book where you can
yeah.
enjoy Nora Ephron's movies on a table, and as a talking piece. But yeah, I've really enjoyed Nora Ephron's movies throughout the years, and I'm sure there's plenty of fantastic uh, different stories and segments in this book for people to check out.
Mm-hmm. We also have a book about Al Pacino, Sonny Boy, a memoir. Sorry, every once in a while I like to do my best Al Pacino impression. But yeah, I mean, it's a Al Pacino memoir. I mean, that certainly sounds like it's going to be interesting. What an iconic career as an actor.
I
So many
know.
iconic films and some bonkers movies too. He's we know him from The Godfather, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon. So many iconic roles, but he's also been in just so many bonkers movies and parts. Devil's Advocate comes to mind in that, but he always a really interesting actor, a really interesting guy. I could totally see his memoir being really fascinating as a read.
Yeah, there's always every year that feels like there's at least two or three of these that come out that I'm really intrigued by. And last year during the holidays, I got one. I guess Patrick Stewart put out one, and while I haven't read it yet, it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to getting through. And I think Al Pacino was definitely an actor who I remember like absolutely being fascinated by Godfather the first time I saw it, and being a fan of Pacino's throughout the years for sure. So that would definitely be something up my alley.
Mm-hmm. So, and then we had some other books in here. Of course, we want to make some recommendations for guests that we've had on the show. I know Max the newsletter plugs our horror for weenies, our guest Emily who came on her book, and so that's on the list. Obviously, we recommend that. We were both enjoying reading it when we talked to her, and we also want to plug our guest Odie Henderson. He wrote a book called Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras. It's all about black exploitation, so we would obviously recommend that as well. And then let's see, what else do we have on the list in terms of book
Well, Evan,
recommendations?
I also want to shout out a store by writer Matt Zoller Zeiss. He has a online bookstore called MZS Press that carries a lot of these books by film writers. And if you're interested in kind of like a curated selection of these type of books and don't want to shop at Amazon over the holidays, that's a fantastic resource to purchase your books from.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Oh, cool.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to books, I'm not usually in a rush to get whatever it is, and that's really the advantage that Amazon provides in a lot of instances is that you can get whatever it is you need quickly. So yeah, if I can support a small bookstore, or if I can support local artists and make sure I'm getting more of my money to them, I'm all about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly we won't shun anyone on the show if you find Amazon easy and less expensive than anybody else. But just remember uh, where your holiday money goes this year, and it's great to support other businesses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, trust me, I order plenty of things from Amazon myself. I'm not gonna come down on
Yeah, me
anybody
too.
about it. I get it. I get it totally. But that's a really cool resource to know about.
So one of the big like box sets this holiday season, and we're gonna highlight Criterion because me personally, I love Criterion. I love what they do in the Criterion channel, and usually November is their biggest month of the year because it coincides with the 50% off sale at Barnes and Noble, and of course the holidays and what have you. This year they've decided to release this box set that I would qualify that it's really for people who don't really have a toe already in the water of the Criterion Collection because they have listened to their filmmakers, actors, and writers who have visited the Criterion Closet throughout the year, and they've kind of made a selection of 40 titles that show up the most on those lists and collected them in one big giant box set where you can get 40 of the most recommended films in the Criterion Collection. And it's quite the box set.
Yeah, no
um,
kidding.
Even at 50% off, yet RS SRP, you're still paying around $400, so about $10 a disc. Like I said, for myself and maybe other fans of Criterion who have collected throughout the years, you probably have a lot of these titles already. I went through
Yeah,
there and I was like, I easily had more than half. So I was like, this is not for me. Even though I generally love Criterion's box sets, but I think even the titles that they have in there are such a great mix. It's not just like
right.
1950s uh, international films.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at films in this set. It's 8.5. Tokyo Story, All That Jazz, Bicycle Thieves, Repo Man. It's just that is such a great example of all the variety that you're gonna get and more in this particular box set. Night of the Hunter. It's so funny that's in there. We just talked about that on our last episode. Yeah, there's quite the variety in here of Criterion films. It's really running the gamut.
Yeah, and like I said, this is the time of year to for extravagant box sets and these monster presents. And I guess if you have a film lover in your life whose diet only includes the latest movies around, and you want them to know a wide breadth of film, this is a great starter set for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you want to buy them one nice big gift and then call it a
yes.
night.
But of course, let's say that that's too expensive. I also believe the Criterion Collection um, streaming service account is a great thing to buy to get into some of the great selections in the collection. And I've supported that since day one, since Filmstruck closed years ago, and they made this dedicated service for the Criterion Collection. So uh, I enjoy watching movies through there, and their um, constant recommendations every month. They cycle out new films and old films and curated selections. And when websites and services like Netflix have barely any movies before the year 2000, it's great that there's these streaming services out there that do have such a wide selection.
Yeah, I think that's an underrated gift idea in general. Is that you can get subscriptions to things for people. Get them a year subscription to, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, to Criterion Channel. If you know someone who's a film lover and uses Letterboxd, you can get them a premium subscription to that so they can get more exciting features. You can subscribe to maybe a more niche channel. If you have someone you know who loves horror, you get them a Shutter subscription, or they're it's a really underrated, simple idea, but also can provide a lot of joy throughout the year of having all these like really cool titles to be able to watch.
And if you love different film podcasts like Spoiler Piece Theater, you could always subscribe to their Patreon
That's true. Yeah,
and
that is
support
true.
them.
Yep. You give the gift that keeps on giving.
But there's also some great places to get movie apparel. I know one of the websites that I frequent, Evan, is this website called Super Yaki, and they have a rotating selection of movie apparel. I probably have almost 10 shirts by them by now. I think the most recent one I got was they did a shirt based on fictional movie bands, and the
Ooh,
one I got was Ellen Aim and the Attackers from Streets of Fire.
nice.
And I was like, "Oh, are you making a Streets of Fire shirt? I'm buying that." Um, they've had other great stuff over the years. I remember they they tend to follow those like AMC memes a lot, and so I have a shirt that says "the movies" and it says Vin Diesel underneath it because his quote in the trailer, or like they have a picture of Nicole Kidman with her AMC ad. They've had a lot of great stuff over the years, and just keep an eye out and look at some of their rotating selections all the time. Some other stuff I know, A24. We mentioned their book already, but they also have a shop where you can buy some of their expensive goods. They are not
Yes,
they are not inexpensive.
they are quite expensive, the stuff that they offer at the store, but if you want to get a true A24 lover a gift, that's a good place to check.
Yeah, those are generally the places that I look for my movie apparel. I know that sometimes if you look at these websites like a shirt of the day or something, it like looks at all these different websites that have graphic tees that have that go up for 1 day of sales. I think it's mainly to avoid any copyright problems, but um, one of the sites that I use frequently is the Yeti, and they have a lot of video game shirts and anime adjacent shirts that I like to buy there, and I can certainly recommend them.
Yeah, I actually have a site that I'd like to plug called Creeporama. They make a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of really cool looking movie shirts. I have this really awesome Airheads shirt that I adore that I got from there. And they just have really awesome designs, a lot of like really bright colors, and I dig the stuff that they have there.
All right, and I guess um, some other physical media places. If you're having trouble this year and you want to buy physical media, with Best Buy not carrying it anymore and Target carrying less in store, you can certainly always use Amazon if you would like to. They have a good selection. But lately, I've been using a website called Diabolic DVD, and they're a small independent business, and they not only carry a lot of like niche titles, but they also carry stuff from Region B and 4Ks from overseas, and 4K is region free. So if you have a 4K player and you want one that's only been released in England, you can still buy it and play it on your player, no problem. There's other great websites like that, like Orbit DVD. I think Evan mentioned at the beginning, there's Vinegar Syndrome. Not only do they have their own titles, but they also showcase a lot of other smaller labels.
Yep.
Evan, one of their big holiday releases is a 4K of Congo that I had to pre-order.
Oh, nice.
I was like, that's awesome. Um,
Yeah, really cool box art too in the Vinegar Syndrome titles.
yeah, and I mean, they're not the kind of titles. They're not between Vinegar Syndrome and Criterion. They're very different places, right? Like Criterion is like
Right.
these highbrow, like you'd expect the films to be like really, really great. Whereas Vinegar Syndrome, I often find their films like just an enjoyable good time. You can't take them seriously, and
Right. Like Miami, I'm on the front page of their website, and Miami Connection is one of the movies up there. So it's a lot of like more obscure movies that maybe you rented back in the VHS days and thought, gee, I totally forgot that that movie even existed. I wonder if that ever got a DVD release.
yeah.
Yeah, it might have by Vinegar Syndrome.
um, all right, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed our holiday gift list, and if there's something that you want to buy for your budding film lovers or what have you, that you've gotten some good ideas from listening today.
Yeah.
All right, so before we transition to what we've been watching, we're going to talk about where you can find us. And I know there's a certain website that's new to Blue Sky, which I know Evan will want to plug. But you can find me at itsthepictures.substack.com on Blue Sky. I have erased my presence from X, so you will not find me there anymore. The It's the Pictures podcast still has a presence on X at It's the Pic Pod. It's also on Blue Sky and Instagram and Letterboxd. And of course, you can email us at itsthepictures@gmail.com. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can listen to us, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, or what I've learned the other day, Evan, is most people listen to their podcasts from YouTube these days. So
Yeah.
if you want to listen to us on YouTube, please, we're available there for you to enjoy. Evan, where can they find you?
Oh yeah, I'm still on X. I haven't given up on it, but I'm also not posting a ton there. I think I'm spending a lot more time these days on Blue Sky and Threads. Not really posting as much on Threads. I think I'm engaging more with Blue Sky because I feel like that's closer to what Twitter used to be.
hmm
But yeah, I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Twitter/X. Also on Letterboxd as Real Recon. That's real as in film reel. And then over at Spoiler Piece Theater, doing weekly movie reviews as well. So, and that's wherever you get podcasts.
And Spoiler Piece is on Blue Sky. That's what I was hinting at.
Yeah, just joined.
It's
Just made an account. I think yesterday or the day before. So coming on over to where the skies are bluer, as so many have said.
yeah, and I think like if you want to see us there and stuff like that, maybe we'll be spending more time there. I know Blue Sky themselves has just been blowing up since after the election. It has now up to 20 million users. So yeah, if you want to join the conversation there, feel free to reach out to us and give us a buzz. But
Yeah, so
Evan,
far a much kinder, gentler place.
yeah.
That Blue Sky.
But Evan, since
Yes.
our inboxes have been overloaded with screeners, we've been kind of picking out movies to try to watch and catch up with. You've caught up with two, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I had to, as the husband of a lawyer and someone who loves legal dramas, I had to check out Juror number 2. But also because I feel like it just got swept out of theaters so quickly and had so little promotion to it that I had to see for myself, is this really a bad movie or did it just get kind of a bum rap? And I actually really dug Juror number 2.
Mm.
It's Clint Eastwood's newest movie. It stars Nicholas Hoult. He is on a jury. He is juror number 2, as the title suggests. And yeah, he's on the jury of a murder trial, and he after he's picked, he realizes he has some pretty important information that could make or break this verdict. And yeah, it's a mess for him in his personal life and sitting on this jury. This movie also co-stars Toni Collette. She plays the prosecutor in the case. Chris Messina plays the defense attorney. Zoe Deutch, his wife, and J.K. Simmons is one of the other jurors. So this is a pretty solid legal thriller. I very much enjoyed it. Although I have to say, I've never been a big Nicholas Hoult fan, and I don't think this movie, if you're not, this movie's not going to really change your mind. I think this part could have been played by anyone else and probably been a lot more compelling, but I still had a good time. Did you see Juror number 2 yet, Max?
No, and I feel compelled to see it for many of the same reasons you mentioned. I had watched the trailer for it, so I understood the plight and everything that goes on a little bit clearer. I mean, the trailer does spell out things pretty clear of where the movie's going.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, many people believe that this is probably Clint Eastwood's last movie. I mean, he hasn't outright said so, and given the man loves movies and what have you, he'll probably be continuing to make movies till the day he dies. But I believe he's in his mid 90s, and he made this movie, and um, people are finding it and enjoying it. I know for our audience, if you didn't catch it in theaters during its brief theatrical run, um, Max, the service, is saving it and putting up on the streaming service later in December. So you'll be able to catch it there if you wanted to catch it. And maybe in their way they were like, "Oh, Clint Eastwood movie, we'll get people to sign up." But I don't know necessarily if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that myself, but I feel bad because I think this is a really solid legal thriller, and it's a bummer that it didn't get much muscle promotion behind it and just kind of quickly left theaters. So I'd recommend it. And yeah, and then the other movie I watched recently was Love Lies Bleeding, which is a movie I'd been wanting to catch up with for a while. It was on my list, and then thanks to the good old screener pile, both in email and I got a physical copy of it as well from A24, I was able to catch up with it. And for those not familiar, it's a crime drama kind of thriller. It's kind of, I would say, walking the line between a few different genres, but it stars Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien, and they are Kristen Stewart's working at a gym. Katie O'Brien's a bodybuilder that comes in, and they fall for each other. And there's lots of seediness going on because Kristen Stewart's father, Ed Harris, runs this gun range, but he's also doing some gun smuggling. And her brother-in-law, Dave Franco, is abusing his wife, Jenna Malone. So there's lots of violence. I mean, the funny thing is, for a movie that's called Love Lies Bleeding, it's not that violent of a movie. There's one particularly gruesome kill involved, but it's I think it's just a solid kind of crime drama thriller kind of movie, and I really dug the lead performances and the chemistry between Katie O'Brien and Kristen Stewart. So it gets a little weird toward the end. It gets a little like surreal in a way that I was not expecting, but I didn't mind. I was about it. Did you see this one, Max?
Yeah, I saw this one in theaters earlier this year, and it stayed in my top 20 for quite a while. I thought it was really well done too, and I like the vibe it was going for. And um, you didn't mention that like one of the things that like kind of is a driving force of this movie is like Kristen Stewart just kind of like pressures Katie O'Brien's character into like taking steroids, and
Yes.
the steroid juice gets a little out of hand.
Yeah, I would say so, as is the case when people start taking steroids. It's not something people typically just kind of dabble in for fun.
Hmm. But no, I thought it was very entertaining, and it's nice to. I always enjoy seeing Ed Harris in movies, and
Yeah, he plays a real slime bag in this one.
yeah. um, and
What have
then
you been watching?
yeah, so I went to the theater to see Gladiator 2, and I was telling people, Evan, that Gladiator 2 should have been my bag because in my basement I have a poster of Gladiator 1 with Russell Crowe. It
Yep.
was a movie that I saw when I was like 14 years old. And I thought it was the bee's knees. I thought it was like the coolest thing under the sun. And Gladiator 2 is not that. This one stars Denzel Washington, like I said originally. Paul Mescal is the lead here, and has rounded out the cast of you know young actors who are in a lot of great roles. I guess recently, the guy, what's his name? Something Quinn from Stranger
Oh,
Things.
Joseph Quinn.
Yeah, he's in this, and I don't know, Evan. Like it very much like tells you that it's a sequel at the beginning. Like the opening credits are like just a recap of what happened in Gladiator 1,
Well, that's nice
and
they did that for
yeah.
people.
And so when you finally re like meet Paul Mescal's character, and you're like, oh, who's this guy? You're like very obvious, like the connection that you can make or what they're trying to do. Um, so not only is it like copying the same idea of the first movie where Rome is in the shit, and this guy turned slave turned gladiator has to kind of save the day, uh but it also has like this other subplot of how Denzel Washington's character had kind of been slighted, and how he's making his way up in the world. And yeah, like most people have said, Denzel Washington has like the most interesting material in this movie. He, just elevates it that one extra level that otherwise it's just your substandard sword and sandals movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like even the stuff in the Coliseum, Evan, I didn't like as much. Like you have it's almost like he is going against Paul Mescal's character is going against an increasing array of animals, not
Right.
necessarily like humans. And so like he'll go against baboons in one instance, or a rhino, or they even have sharks in the Colosseum. And
Ooh, sharks.
yeah, yeah, and it just gets like out of hand. And I don't think that Paul Mescal has the same charisma as Russell Crowe. Where it's like
Mm-hmm.
I think Mescal is a great actor. I really enjoyed him in After Sun, but he might be like more of like a cerebral actor, or like, but not like this big action hero.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see him like that, and the film kind of suffers from it. And when you get done watching it, and they recycle themes from Hans Zimmer's original score because he decided not to come back, you're like, yeah,
that's a bummer.
they're like, why did we do this? And yeah, I was very disappointed.
That's a bummer. Yeah, I'd heard really, if there's any reason to tune in, it's Denzel Washington and his kind of bonkers performance in
Yeah.
this. I'd heard this past week on Spoiler Piece that Pedro Pascal felt like he was underused in this movie. Is that
Hmm.
something that you would agree with?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, like there's this idea that they're building him up to be like the Joaquin Phoenix character of this
Mm-hmm.
movie, and it just never. They like take a swerve at one point, and it doesn't really quite come out to be that. And I don't know. He just feels like kind of there, neither like good or bad. He's just kind of taking up space in this movie.
That's a shame because I really love him when he shows up in things.
Yeah, and I know, like that's what I thought. Like this was like, oh, such a good cast. And I was like, I like Paul Mescal. I was like, if you're gonna do this after 25 years, maybe this is gonna be good. And
Mm-hmm.
no, and like I haven't really loved a Ridley Scott movie in a while. I mean, like I do like his Prometheus and Alien Covenant movies fine, and The Martian is pretty good, but he's another director who is up there in age and probably doesn't have too many left. And I wish he just didn't go back to the well and recycle something that didn't need to be recycled.
Yeah, yeah, I getcha. He's been kind of hit or miss in recent years. I remember thinking Last Duel was good, but I was not a fan of House of Gucci, and I never saw the Napoleon one.
Yeah, right. And for me, I saw House of Gucci, and I didn't see Last Duel, and yeah, I didn't see Napoleon either. So, but yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I've been watching a lot of movies, Evan, trying to catch up with the end of the year stuff. But one of the ones I watched most recently was Amelia Perez, and I'm not stepping on that landmine. So I will not be talking about that movie. Uh, but
Yeah, it's pretty controversial from what I've heard.
yeah. But yeah, that will wrap up our Thanksgiving holiday episode. We'll have one more episode this year because we tend to not run into the Christmas holiday. And this year we'll also include Hanukkah because it occurs
Right.
right on Christmas.
Exactly. Hanukkah is going on at the same time as Christmas and will also be going on while New Year's is happening. So
Yeah.
we'll technically get Hanukkah in this year and Hanukkah in next year as well. Next year we'll have two Hanukkahs.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll come back for one more episode for 2024, and yeah, I hope everybody has a pleasant Thanksgiving. Do you have a sign off, Evan, as well?
Yeah, I just hope everyone has a nice Thanksgiving, eat some good food, spend quality time with family, watch some good movies, and for the love of God, don't talk about politics.
uh, all right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.